basketball Thursday night, both at home. Okay.
Sorry, running a little behind. Got a long walk over here. Had to keep you guys waiting, but we're excited to get started on Tennessee today. Josh has done an incredible job. The atmosphere, you can see it in home games and the way their guys play. Have really bought into their system, and defensively they're playing better and better. Offensively, I think in the last either 3 or 4 games, they're averaging the most points in the SEC. Really up-tempo, fast-paced offense that's really hard to prepare for. Everybody tries to prepare in the off-season for teams like this in the bye week, but it's so hard to simulate. When you talk to other people going against it, it makes it tremendously tough. So our guys are excited for the opportunity. Playing on the road in the SEC is one of the toughest things there is to do in the country, and we'll have to go up to a really tough environment and play really good football against these guys. The quarterback's playing tremendous, and their defense has gotten better and better with each week. So that'll open it up.
Coach, just kind of talk about that challenge a little bit more about defending Tennessee with the explosive capability that they have. And I think they got, 5 touchdown passes for over 70 yards this year.
Yeah, I think it's the most in the country. And when you look at it, you talk to people, because everybody talks across the country and league trying to defend it. It's just so fast. And you can't really simulate that in your practices. So you're always trying to find a creative way to practice for it. And it's so different than the triple option. I'm not trying to compare it to triple option, but it's so different that it's hard to prepare for it. And you can't simulate it with your team unless you do it. And we don't do that as well as they do it. So it makes it tough to prepare for. And your players really have to buy in. They have to say, this is really important. We know that it's important to play this way and play against tempo, and you got to work really hard at it. So it's hard to simulate, and the challenge will be there this week for both offense, defense, and special teams, because what they do doesn't just affect the defense. It affects your offense, it affects your special teams.
Kirby, looking back to the offseason, you were really fired up about the connection and the skull sessions. Players were too. 9 games into the year now, can you offer any specifics or anything anecdotally to see where that's paid off for you guys through 9 games, where it's been a big benefit for you?
Oh, it's been a tremendous benefit. The players have benefited from it in terms of connection. They feel more connected. I think they know each other across position groups better. They know each other. Sitting in this meeting room, they're that much closer. They know each other's why and their purpose, and that's made creating leadership, developing leadership much better. I've been a big proponent of our leadership group and talked about it every year, and this year I haven't had one meeting, not one, because I felt like we continued to get the same things we'd gotten doing the same things, and we didn't want to do that again this year, and the leaders have developed throughout those sessions, not through meetings or group meetings with me or other strength coaches or other people. They've come naturally through the off-season connection and composure and toughness and the resiliency they've had.
How do you guys go about doing a better job of converting the red zone trips into touchdowns?
Converting third downs, scoring from further out, being able to run the ball better. I mean, if you had to pinpoint one thing, it would be execution. So you would say, okay, one guy kept us from doing this, whether it was a penalty, whether it was a mental error, whether it was a decision by the quarterback. But usually in the red area, when you can run the ball stubbornly, you can score touchdowns. And when you can't run the ball stubbornly, meaning there's people in the box, it doesn't matter how many, because there's not so much depth on the field. People aren't worried about the ball being thrown over their heads. So you've got one extra hat, in some cases 2 extra hats to block in the red area. So you've got to be really well executing to do that.
Kirby, how did JT come away health-wise after his first game action in a while, and how did you evaluate his performance when you watched the film?
Health-wise, he seemed fine. I haven't talked to him about it, but I think health-wise he seemed fine. He didn't take any major hits. Evaluation, watching him play, I thought he did a good job. He had command of the offense. He understood. Like I said Saturday, he did a really good job of being over there and seeing what the defense was trying to do. He understands our offense on, number one, where to go with the ball, what plays to put us in, decision-making with the ball. He did a good job of those things. I mean, I think that he did a really nice job for the reps he's got.
Kirby, you addressed it the other night after the game a little, or the other day, sorry, about the success of Missouri's quarterbacks running the ball a little. I think you maybe said it was over pursuit. When you looked at the tape, is that kind of what you saw? And then how important with Hendon Hooker, his ability to not only take off, but obviously he has smart decision making about when to throw it too.
Oh, Hendon Hooker's a tremendous athlete. He's really hard to tackle. He's big, physical, strong arm. Saturday's miscues had a lot to do with execution, tackling. We missed tackles, did not tackle well. Probably our poorest game in terms of tackling. Assignment, doing your gap football, didn't do that. There were a couple quarterback runs that were, a guy, instead of going in his gap, he went in somebody else's gap, and it's never good when you do that. So it wasn't an over pursuit at all. It was a execution of your job and understanding the importance of your job, because when you run the quarterback, you almost have to be perfect on defense, as opposed to when the quarterback hands it off, you have one less guy blocking. So they did a nice job of that. And I mean, the quarterback run is an element that makes stopping teams really hard. And both Missouri did a nice job of that, and Tennessee does that really well too.
Yeah, Kirby, kind of two questions. One, you mentioned, I guess, doing creative things in practice to prepare for a fast-paced offense. Just what are some of those methods that you maybe learned from going as offenses like this in the past? And two, you talk about eye discipline a lot this year with the secondary. Sort of, is Tennessee another one of those teams that really stresses that aspect of your defense?
Absolutely, eye discipline. They've gotten some touchdowns just off the tempo of play. Guys not being lined up, guys not communicating properly, and guys having eyes in the wrong place. That's not just Tennessee. That's everybody in the country. When you have bad eyes, you can get beat. Their way of making you an eye violator is just a little different than other people in the ways they go about it. But as far as how we practice for it, we change it up. We do different things. I mean, I don't have to go into a litany of things we do to practice for it. I mean, it's just we have to change it up.
On the line, how do you think it looked without Jamari? And is Jamari's foot injury similar to, I guess, what maybe Andrew Thomas had a few years ago, as far as not surgery, but just kind of a foot injury in practice?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what Andrew Thomas is. That's so long ago. I have no idea. I think Andrew Thomas had an ankle where he sprained his ankle. Jamari's is not extremely serious. It's not requiring surgery. He may be able to go this week. We'll see how he is today. So it's we're hoping to get him back. He's conditioning, running, doing everything. We're just hoping we can get him back. So, but yeah, I thought Roger did a nice job stepping in. He had some things that he can work on and get better at. The great thing with Broderick is he got to step in a game at Auburn and got to play when Jamari's ankle was sprained, and he did a nice job. So, Broderick has gotten a quantity of reps there with the ones throughout camp, throughout the time Jamari was a guard, throughout the time Jamari's been banged up, and then throughout every week when Jamari goes and works his secondary position, Broderick gets to go. So Broderick has had no shortage of reps. I think he'd be the first to tell you he could play better, but he played well. He played hard, and that's what we ask our guys to do: play with relentless effort, strain, play really physical. He did those things we asked. He can get better at some technique things.
I was actually going to ask about Jamari and Broderick, but turning attention, I guess, to Tennessee and covering those wideouts and that kind of stuff. Is it naive to say that's it depends on how the back end plays, and how do you feel like you guys match up against that kind of explosivity?
Yeah, they've got a really good group of wideouts, extremely physical, big, size, speed. They're really fast on tape. I mean, we know the players they're running past. Those are good football players they're running past and making explosive plays. They've made a lot of plays down the field. They would have had more of these earlier. They overthrew some early in the season where they just missed them. They've been hitting on all cylinders, and they've been extremely explosive with what they've done. But to say that it'll be all in secondary, I think that's not very wise. I mean, you got to control the run game. Okay, everybody thinks these guys are pass first. They run the ball really well, and they're stubborn about it. They wear you down, and they just keep body blow after body blow after body blow to the point where you can't rush the passer, or you can't stop the run. And it's the big runs that lead to the explosive passes. So we're going to play well on all parts of the defense. It's a great challenge for this group because No matter how good you are up front, the guys on the back end are gonna have to make plays, and no matter how good you are on the back end, the front guys are gonna have to control the quarterback, run game, and be able to do some of those things. So they'll test you everywhere.
Yeah, Coach, two-parter. One, finally get to ask about Julian Rochester playing, and two, the changes we're seeing in the SEC with this much left in the season. What does that say about the pressure and the demands that we're seeing now in your profession?
Well, Julian first. I'm so proud of Julian. He's worked really hard. He spent, I don't know how many weeks on the scout team. I mean, since he's been cleared, I would guess it's like 3 weeks. He's kind of been down there repping, and he wanted to get confidence going against our guys. So he's taken a lot of scout team reps, and then last week we thought that he had progressed to the point where he was getting quality work done against them and being able to hold the point and move. And so we were able to get him some reps with us in terms of jumping in, and he helps spell those guys. I think he'd be the first day. He's probably still not 100%, but he's much better now than he was previously coming off of ACL. And then as far as the changes, to be honest with you, I don't know if I have a comment on that. I'm so focused on playing Tennessee and getting ready for this game that I hadn't even thought about the changes across the league.
Kirby, when you're recruiting guys, how much stock do you put into a guy's stars, whether people say he's a 3-star, 4-star, or 2-star, or stuff like that?
0. I have no idea I have no idea what the stars are, nor do I care. The only time I care is when the kid is crying to me about his stars and he's worried about it, and I know he's a good player and I'm worried about getting him. So that'd be the only time I care, because I'm trying to massage him and say it's okay, it's going to be all right, whether you're 3, 4, or 5. But I mean, it's not like we have that in our records. We don't put that beside their name. Some places, they put what the recruiting analysts say about them in there. I don't care. I just care more about the player.
Kirby, I realize you probably gonna not want to talk about individual awards, but when you look at the criteria for the Heisman Trophy, they mentioned integrity, diligence, perseverance, and hard work. Do you believe somebody like Jordan Davis has shown that? And do you think a defensive player should be in the running for the Heisman?
I love Jordan. What he's done for our defense is incredible. I don't think you can measure in the statistics what he's done for our defense. But I'm no analyst to be deciding who gets to go for the Heisman and who's up for it. I think that's the media and the talking heads and everybody that gets to be a part of that. They've kind of controlled the narrative there. For me, it's about our team and our team playing well, and Jordan's been a tremendous part of that, and he's been a bigger bonus to our defense from a confidence standpoint and a run stopping standpoint than probably any other measurable stat that we have there defensively.
Coach, just real quick, can you talk about how nasty this rivalry is? I know we talk Auburn and Georgia, but we've gone up to Tennessee a couple times, and it's been pretty nasty. A couple injuries coming back. Nick Chubb stands out as one. What is that game like up there? Just that Tennessee versus Georgia type of feel.
It's a rivalry game. I mean, we've said it for years. Tennessee has all kinds of rivals, and we have all kinds of rivals. It's a unique part of being in the SEC, and Tennessee and Georgia is one of those. And it's been one that's at times it's been lopsided. I know when I played here, it was lopsided their way because we could never beat them, and they've had ups and downs. But I do know this: Josh is doing a really good job. He's done a tremendous job of recruiting and getting the players that are there to buy in, and they bought in. They're playing really hard, really physical. They play with a lot of confidence. So we'll need to play a really good game.
I wanted to ask you about Nolan Smith's leadership abilities. Was that something, going back to even when you were recruiting him, you thought he could develop into being a good leader, and how has he sort of developed as a leader in his time at Georgia?
Yeah, he's always had leadership skills. He's very intelligent. Everywhere you meet people in the schools he's been at or the schools he grew up going to, they rave about what a great kid he is. He went to IMG, it was the same thing. He came here from IMG, just a tremendous leader. He's kind of come into his own in terms of leadership where there's a quiet confidence. I think the more he played before he was rotating more as a sophomore, the more he's played, the more his personality's been able to come out. And I appreciate his leadership, and really his energy and enthusiasm he brings to work every day is what makes him a good leader.
Kirby, can you tell us about some of the guys we don't get to see in practice? You had, I think, 5 freshman defensive backs: Javon Bullard, Lawson Carroll. You moved over David Daniel, Nyland Green, Kamari Lasser. Can you tell us what are they doing and how do they look?
They're growing. They're getting better. I think 3 or 4 of those guys were here for spring, so they got to go through spring, which has put them in a position to be backups because of our lack of depth. But they continue to progress. I mean, they get lots of reps in practice, very few reps in games. Kamari's got to play a little more in the games we've been in, and because of Amir Speed's injury, and then Javon Bullard has got to play. I wouldn't say quite a bit, but he rotates and plays because we have to work Brini at safety some. So Bullard works at star when Brini's at safety, and he's done a good job coming along. But the progress those guys make a lot of times in our defense is learning and being able to kind of make decisions and calls, and they've each gotten better at that. And I tell them all the time, I need more out of them on special teams, because that's where you kind of cut your teeth when you first get here, is what can I do on special teams, how can I help? And Kamari and Bullard have been really big assets on that. We continue to work with those other guys.
Kirby, this time of year in the coaching profession, you've been through it as an assistant and a head coach. What is it like? How do you manage everything when you're chasing a championship? There's got to be the coaching carousel, and now you've got the early signing period in December.
Simple. I mean, you focus on the task at hand. I think that's easier said than done. But when you're playing, a team like Tennessee, I mean, since noon on Sunday, all I've been thinking about is Tennessee, and how do we message it right to our players? How do we game plan right, offense, defense, special teams for our players? How much tape can I watch? Tape is information. How do you prepare them mentally for that? That I don't even think about those other things. Those other things come as they come. You deal with them as you deal with them, whether it's coaching search for one of your guys or whether it's recruiting and numbers. I mean, we have set meetings for that. Like we have meetings every week that are set in stone. That's where my focus is. But that's not my focus on Sunday, Monday of Tennessee week. You focus on the task at hand, and when the game plan's done, there's always a little, call it dead time, Thursday, Friday, and you work on the future of your program or the future of your organization, and that's when we start thinking about those.
Kirby, Jermaine and Arian obviously boosted the receiving corps the other day. What does it look like with Dom and George in terms of practice and playing in terms of stepping up when they can do more?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. Dom repped last week with us on the scout team. He came down and got work. Cause it's not as easy as saying, "Oh, Dom's back, go in there." It's kind of like Julian. He had to go down, get his feet wet, get his confidence. So it'll be a boost to us to have Dom take some reps, limited reps, as a scout receiver because of the receiving core we're facing to simulate it. Probably the biggest setback we've had all year is not having the scout team receivers that we normally have to test us, to train us, to compete with us. And for the last 2 weeks, or last week, we've been able to get Jackson Meeks some, get Dom some, and be able to grow them there. So that's the hope. And again, we're still waiting to hear on George.
2 more questions?
Coach, just want to ask you about the impact now that Jordan and Jalen have been having on goal line. I just wonder if any of those 2 guys kind of lobbied you to get a carry before this year is over with.
I don't make those decisions. I defer to Coach Monk and Dale. They do a good job game planning goal line and finding the best plays for us. And sometimes simpler is better in terms of power and moving people. And we've got a lot of weapons on the line of scrimmage, and those guys are weapons in terms of moving folks. But they enjoy doing it. They enjoy doing it because they get out of a couple of defensive plays a day. They get to go down and hang with the offense. I think that's their enjoyment more than anything else.
Kirby, in your experience going all over the place looking at high school football, has there ever been a moment where you go to a game, focus on one player, but you watch them play and you leave the game more interested in someone you weren't really expecting?
Yeah, that happens quite. I don't know if I would say more interested, because if I went there to watch a player, we think he's a really good player that we were really interested in. As an assistant coach, that happened more because I was out more. as a head coach, that probably doesn't happen as much because when you're going out to see somebody, you know, it's usually one of the featured players or things like that. But you always get to see other guys, and watching them compete live, there's no substitute for that because you see how they interact with their players, the fans, the coaches, how they react to a poor play, how they react to a really good play. So that happens a lot, and that's why you go out to see them in person. It's a lot